rights, and you have this thing, this Cavalier migration. I mentioned quickly in passing that civil war that England had, where Protestants were fighting a different kind of Protestant. That lasted between 1649 and 1660, and that period includes the Protectorate of Oliver Cromwell. It's a period after Charles II is executed, and the government is run as a benevolent dictatorship by Oliver Cromwell. During that period, the nobility was rather dispirited. That was not a lot for them to do. They were on the losing side. The king lost early in this war, and that's where these Cavalier migrants come from. So Virginia gets an influx of well-off people during this period around 1650 to 1675, and that is a period that we can see about 2.4 million acres are patented, or become owned, as it were. So that's a lot. So by 1675, they pretty much own all the land is pretty much owned. The tax system does not give them any incentive, though, to use it. Right? There's no tax on land. There's only a tax on heads. So you're taxed on your own head and taxed on all of your indentured servants' heads. But that's it. So if you own a big chunk of that 2.4 million acres, you don't have to do anything with it. There's no economic penalty for that. So as a result, when these indentured servants become free, there's no land for them to buy. There's no way for them to get started. And what we've got here is a mirror of what we saw in England. It's got population and a rigid social structure. And we've got a growing class of disaffected rural proletariat. Now, the difference here, there are two differences, but otherwise it's very similar. It's very similar to the situation in England, except, of course, this aspect that a lot of this land is just not being used. So the place isn't as crowded. And the other difference is that, unlike in England, all of the rural proletariat in Virginia are armed. And that sets up, as you might imagine, that sets up a situation where rebellion is at least a possibility. The rebellion actually, let's see, is this another slide here? The rebellion is actually a pretty simple story. It starts when a trading dispute becomes violent between one of the frontier settlers and some local Dogue Indians. But what it turns out is somewhat surprising. So the story that I told you is we have rich people who own all the land, and they're corrupt, by the way, and we have this growing group of well-armed, disaffected rural proletariat. You'd think they might fight over land, but in fact what they're going to fight over is Indian policy. And Nathaniel Bacon, who is one of these Cavalier migrants from very recently, he jumps into the lead of this, and he simply promotes his policy. He declares himself he grants himself a commission, and he raises an army to go and slaughter Indians. And it's the conflict that erupts into Bacon's rebellion is that conflict between the part of the colony led by Berkeley, the governor, king's appointed governor, and who does not want to slaughter Indians, and Bacon, who does. It becomes a bloodbath, but in the end, the rebellion peters out when Bacon dies of probably typhoid. All right. So what's interesting about it, what's important about it, the key idea that we should take away from Bacon's rebellion, skipping over the details, is that even though we have this potential real source of conflict between the rich and the poor, it's the desire to kill the racial other. It's race, in other words, that trumps all that. Which gives us a hint of how important race is in this period. Oddly, though, this is also the period after Bacon's rebellion, which is 1675. The racial attitudes between blacks and whites are also developing in this period, and they're going in the same direction, but they're not nearly as far along. It's really only in the 1660s that differentiation between whites and blacks really becomes noticeable or strong. Prior to these slave codes, we don't see the word white. People are German or Spanish or Angolan or Guinean. Nationalities recognized, but not white, not black. Right? And I have an illustration. This is quoted. The story of Tony Longo is quoted by Edmund Morgan in the book that I mentioned earlier. Saith that coming to Tony Longo, his house with a warrant of Major Walker's, your deponent asked him whether he would go along to Mr. Walker's with me. His answer was, "What shall I go to Mr. Walker's for? Go about your business, you idle rascal." On those slighting terms, I told him I had a warrant for him, and saying, "Will you go with that?" He made me answer, "Shit of your warrant. Have I," said he, "nothing better to do but go to Mr. Walker? Go about your business, you idle rascal." As did likewise his wife, with such noise that I could hardly hear my own words, reading the warrant to them, which when I had done reading, the said Tony stroked at me and gave me some blows. And the story goes on. Eventually, Tony Longo does pay a fine for his hostility to authority. But that is really the point of this story. Tony Longo is black, and he's showing that very same distaste for authority that Hakluyt told us about, that Hakluyt expected in the 1580s when he said that the Cimarrons would live happily with English convicts and everybody would become English. This guy, Tony Longo, is English, but he's also black. That's 1655. But it doesn't take very long before all this changes. And by 1669, we have an act about the casual killing of slaves, where the point here is that, be it enacted and declared by this grand assembly, if any slave resist his master, and by the extremity of the correction should chance to die, his death shall not be counted felony. But the master be acquitted from molestation, since it cannot be presumed that prepense malice, which alone makes murder felony, should induce any man to destroy his own estate. In other words, it's not murder to kill a slave because you own a slave. And we can't possibly imagine that you're hurting yourself by doing it, so can't really imagine it happening. This is very different from, see, in the space of 15 years or so, this colony has changed quite a lot. After this, what are we doing? Let me go back now to our population figures here. So you can see now, as we get into the 1700s, the African population starts to really take off. And you can argue that the reason for that is largely the aftermath of Bacon's rebellion, combined with this new attitude. Now, I don't know where the cause and effect is between Bacon's rebellion and this new attitude about black and white relations, but the economics also changed pretty dramatically here. By 1675, it's very clear that indentured servants aren't that great a deal. relative, or I should say they're less of a good deal relative to permanent black slaves. The reason is that mortality is not dropped enough. If you're going to work your slaves to death quickly, the indentured ones are a lot cheaper. Right? But if you're going to survive, it suddenly makes sense to buy permanent slaves. That along with this notion that it promotes stability, because you keep a permanent slave as a slave always, an indentured slave is going to become free, and you're going to be disaffected rural proletariat. That's not in the interest of the ruling class. Right? Okay, so what's left then? The ways then, I think we can put this story together, and we can see the ways, some of the ways at least, in which slavery actually promotes freedom. So first it defines whiteness, not the other way around, in some sense. The term whiteness, as we see, white comes out of the slave codes in the 60s, so 1660s. So it puts a line between blacks and whites. And that line is going to tend to put whites all on the same side, right? It's going to make, let's see, it's going to unite whites in particular against the threat of insurrection. So it's going to undo the problem of Bacon's rebellion. If you're white, even if you're poor, you're not likely to conspire with enslaved blacks to upset the current order, because your goals are different. And that makes the well-off more secure, to say the least. Okay. Slavery also produces wealth, and concentrated wealth. We're talking about the wealth of Washingtons and Jeffersons. And in this period, that's perhaps necessary to produce sufficient education and leisure time to write these important ideological Republican tracts. This is not all that different. It's a little bit different from the argument Aristotle made. Aristotle, recall, also thought that slavery was essential. But for him, it was necessary because the demands of democracy were such that nobody had enough time to farm and participate in government. There's a similarity here to that argument. But finally, and this is where we come now to what I really mean by Republicans, slavery solved the problem of the poor. And that's a big problem for Republicans. The Republican ideology, to say, I want to contrast it with its other half, which is liberalism. Liberalism is the idea, roughly speaking, that follows from Adam Smith. Adam Smith is the guy with the invisible hand. You know? His notion of how the world works is that private vice leads to public virtue. That everybody pursuing their own self-interest makes the world great. Right? That's what maximizes the good for everyone. Republicans do not see the world that way. Republicans are very much worried about private virtue. They think that government is very fragile, and they think that only independent, virtuous citizens, people who are capable of participating in government and putting aside their own personal goals and needs, can make government work. And they're constantly on guard against corruption and vice and so on. So that's really the key difference. There are a few others, but it's their position on virtue, whether virtue comes naturally, whether it's important or whether it's not. The Republicans believe it's important, and they also believe virtue is absolutely impossible without independence. And that's what makes the poor a problem. If the poor can vote, the poor are anything but independent. They are always going to be in the thrall of whoever is feeding them. So if they're employed, they're going to do what their employer says. They're not capable of the independence that's necessary for a good Republican system. So a slave society works great because all of the citizens are independent, because everybody works for them as a slave. It's a nice, neat solution, and you don't have to worry anymore about the poor. That, I think, is really the key idea in the liberals in this time, who don't, by the way, call themselves liberals, do have to worry a little more about the poor. They're not as strongly committed then to equality. Okay, all right. Are there questions about that? That's great. Again, I'll plug this book because I think it's a good one. On Wednesday, we'll turn to New England, which is very different colonial experience at the same time. On Friday, we'll talk a little more about the lab. So once again, if you don't have the right number of partners, please meet out in the hallway and see if you can find each other.